Hello my friends and fellow VEDSies. So, fun fact, I was pretty dang sheltered growing up, and a large part of that meant that we didn't have cable, and Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, even a lot of Disney Channel shows were forbidden from us. But when my parents caved and finally got cable, my brother and I gravitated almost immediately to Boomerang, the channel for old cartoons. We watched all of it, from the mainstream stuff like the Flintstones and the Jetsons and Yogi Bears, to the less remembered stuff like Magilla Gorilla and The Perils of Penelope Pitstop. But like a lot of kids, I was charmed by Scooby-Doo. The spooky but not truly scary atmosphere, the memorable characters, the familiar repetitive story structure, I was charmed by all of it. There's something special about Scooby-Doo, and I am not the only person who thinks it by a long shot. I mean, just look at the sheer amount of video essays here on YouTube about Scooby-Doo, even before Velma was a thing. So my writer brain got going, and I started thinking, what is the most interesting thing I could do with Scooby-Doo while still remaining true to the original spirit of the show? And so I came up with the concept for a new Scooby-Doo show. Here's the most basic version of the pitch. The gang have all graduated high school and have, for various reasons, decided to take a gap year. They're going on a cross-country road trip, and along the way they keep stumbling into strange occurrences and mysteries. For at least one season, I would want it to be purely in the uncanny, where the ghosts aren't real, because Scooby-Doo really does go both ways, and I think if you want to make a strong impression with your ghosts being real, you need to set the precedent that ghosts aren't real in this version. I'm also not particularly interested in doing the huge overarching plot. Mystery Inc. already did it, and a lot of people think that Mystery Inc. is the best Scooby-Doo show, so why would we want to compete with that? However, I would like to see the characters have steady arcs, as well as the continuity of the road trip to make sense. And I like the idea of having recurring characters, like I had the idea that maybe the crazy animatronics that these villains get come from a specific company, or that the gang have relatives that they visit and we can keep track of the actual family trees, or maybe the Hex Girls are touring the country at the same time. And I'm imagining the tone of this would be genuinely spooky, not scary, not necessarily giving kids nightmares, but tying into different types of Americana Gothic imagery, and I'm dilly-dallying because I'm withholding the impetus of this idea and the thing that would make this hypothetical reboot the most unique. See, two of the things that make Mystery Inc. so compelling decade after decade are that they are very strange people and that they are genuinely good friends. And I was thinking about how that really resonates with me and my friend group. And, well, I know why we're like that. It's 'cause we're neurodivergent as fuck. So in my interpretation, and I do believe that there is a lot of precedent for this in canon, Mystery Inc. is a neurodivergent found family. And they are simultaneously supporting one another through the struggles of that, while also using their hyperfixations and things that they have learned because of their neurodiversity to solve these mysteries. With that huge chunk of information out of the way, I think we can get into talking about these specific incarnations of the characters. Starting with Velma, because I think she is the most similar to how she usually is. I can easily imagine Velma being the type of kid who excelled academically, so much so that they had her skip a grade or two. And while that definitely helped somewhat with her not getting so bored in class, it didn't help with her social skills. Velma already has sort of a black and white mentality around a lot of things, and I think that could really be explored in this iteration of the character. I think she took the gap year because she wants to get better at going with the flow and not having as much of the black and white thought process, or at least learning to work in shades of gray so that she can be more successful in college and not have those things be what set her back when academically she should be excelling. So she is the brilliant academic with lots of knowledge who struggles with going with the flow, and that's all very true to canon, but would be emphasized more than normal. Also, of course, I would want her to be a lesbian in this version. I don't know if she would have a long-term girlfriend or just sort of crush and occasionally go on dates, but I would definitely want to have that aspect of her character in this version. Now, the world is a scary, scary place, especially if you are Norville Shaggy Rogers. And so between ADHD and a severe case of anxiety, Shaggy is always just on the verge of a nervous breakdown, and the only reason he hasn't yet is because of his emotional support dog, Scooby-Doo. And yes, of course Scooby-Doo talks. A talking emotional support dog is the right amount of absurd and genuinely wholesome to be a wonderful fit for what I'm imagining in this show. And it also lets Scooby do something, no pun intended. Shaggy's arc probably has a lot of Cowardly Lion energy, with the idea that bravery is when you are afraid and do it anyways. Although I would like to see an episode where Shaggy is faced with a even stronger fear, or maybe even a trauma, and we get a story about boundaries and what's the difference between pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and just self-sabotage. And now, what is Shaggy's role on the team? Because sometimes he just kind of is the sandwich maker. Well, I'm not the first one to propose this, but the idea for this is that Shaggy is sort of a skills monkey. My thought process was that he avoided doing what he was supposed to on so many occasions that he became an expert in random topics to a comedic degree. And I think it could be really funny to see how extreme that could get. And it also gives Shaggy a purpose. As a side note, I also really like the idea of Arrow Ace Shaggy. Giving him a love interest usually just feels forced. And I think Shaggy avoids most of the stereotypes, so he would be nice representation. And in addition, I think it would work well with his arc. You know, he's probably not planning on going to college, either because he doesn't have the grades, because he didn't do his homework because executive dysfunction, or because he's afraid of failure. But I think that that fear of being left behind by his friends, manifesting both in the idea of them going to school and leaving him behind, and also them finding romances and leaving him behind, would be very compelling. For Daphne, I imagine she was the youngest of her siblings and pretty quickly figured out that she was different. While that was super isolating, it also gave her great examples of human behavior to be able to mimic. So Daphne is the face, in part because she is the best at masking on the team, and also because she is able to pick up on inconsistencies in someone's behavior and get a better sense of if they're lying or not. I also think that she has her interest in fashion still, you know, that can manifest in not liking the texture of certain fabrics and being able to identify them just by touch because the touch is bad, or figuring out if something is legit or not based off of if it is historically accurate to how it would have been made at the time, or how a villain might have constructed the costume they're wearing. And she always has at least one accessory on that is secretly a fidget. I don't think Daphne feels comfortable unmasking around other people. I mean, I imagine her family is supportive, especially because I imagine that they are the ones funding this road trip, but I don't think they necessarily get her. And yes, of course, Daphne does martial arts. Daphne should always be able to do martial arts. If people are questioning it, toss in a line saying it looked good on her college resume. And now we get to my special boy, Freddie. People are always surprised by how much I love Fred, including me, because his personality is just sort of generically nice, kind of oblivious, and obsessed with nets and or traps. But I think I found a way to expand on that and give Fred the love he deserves. In Mystery Inc., Fred's father is the mayor of Crystal Cove, and I think we can take that in a different direction and make it work for this. Walter Jones is the mayor of the town, and he puts a lot of pressure on his sons, Junior and Frederick. And a lot of pressure is put on Fred because he isn't normal. That manifests in two ways. One, he has developed an extremely vanilla persona so that he doesn't mess up in social situations because he's so bland and inoffensive. And two, he is extremely nice because he doesn't want to be mean to anyone. He also spent a lot of his summers with his uncle who worked at a traveling circus. There, Fred developed a love of circuses, illusions, escape artists, and of course, traps. This boy had a poster of Houdini on his bedroom wall. And so Fred is the cheerleader of the group, keeping everybody's spirits up, and he's also the illusion trap specialist. You know, if the bad guy is using Pepper's ghost, Fred's the one who sees the glass. And you might understandably be asking yourself, Fred and Daphne, do we ship? And I'm not exactly sure what the best option is. Because I love the ship. When it's done right, it's so cute. But I'm not sure if we want to play it as these two are already in an established relationship, or as mutual pining that will drive the fandom crazy, or the third and potentially funniest option, which is they're dating and everyone knows it except for them. But in any case, we have a set of neurodivergent characters who all present very differently. And at the same time, we have a version of Mystery Inc. where everyone is able to contribute to the mystery. And I think it makes sense that they would all be friends. You know, maybe they got pulled out of classes together, maybe they met and clicked for some reason that they didn't figure out until later. But no matter what, they came together because of what makes them different. And it's those things that bring them a lot of challenges, but with support from their friends is also helping them do things that no one else could. I don't know, I think it is a wholesome way of depicting neurodiversity. And honestly, it doesn't drastically alter the characters. If anything, it explains a lot of already established traits of theirs. I have a lot of thoughts about this concept, ranging from character dynamics to places I would like to see them go on the road trip, and art style and music, but I don't want to overstay my welcome, so I think I will end it here for now. However, I am very curious to hear what y'all think about this one, and if there are any artists watching. Alright, my friends and fellow VEDSies, I will see you tomorrow.